fear, confusion, helplessness. These are the things that a person exiting prison and re-entering society feels. I'm sure that you've heard that the United States has the highest incarceration rate in the world, and you'd be right. It's actually become such a long-standing problem that today nearly half of all Americans have an immediate family member that either is or has been incarcerated. By show of hands, how many of you have a family member, friend, or loved one that's been incarcerated? It's a real problem. And nowhere is it a bigger problem than in my home state of Oklahoma. Oklahoma has the highest, as of 2018, has the highest incarceration rate in the world. We're number one. We're number one. But you may be asking, how big of a problem is it really? Well, let me show you. This graph shows the United States incarceration rate compared to other countries. Unsurprisingly, the United States is bursting off of the graph with how high our incarceration rate is. But now let me add Oklahoma in there. Oklahoma incarcerates at the rate of almost double the national average. Oklahoma incarcerates people at 10 plus times the rate of what France does. To put this in another way, Oklahoma, every 4 to 5 years, incarcerates the entire population of Wyoming. We don't just have the highest general incarceration rate. We have, for long, held the highest women incarceration rate. And just another fact, Black people in Oklahoma are 5 times more likely to be incarcerated than white people. All of these statistics are perfectly acceptable to most Oklahomans. After all, they reason, you don't get arrested if you don't break the law. It's sound logic that I used to believe in whenever I was younger. But as I've gotten older and I've learned more and more, I've started to believe more, as this journalist puts so eloquently, that accepting our highest in the world incarceration rate means believing that Oklahomans are the worst people. Oklahomans aren't the worst people. I know they're not. I live in Moore, Oklahoma, and have been within spitting distance of 5 separate tornadoes. There is no group of people that pulls together faster after a disaster than Oklahomans. So then why the high incarceration rate? Is it because we need to reform our justice system? Is it because we need to train our law enforcement officers better? Is it because people get thrown in prison for minor offenses? Is it because once you have a background issue, it becomes nearly impossible to obtain employment, housing, transportation, or government assistance? Well, yes, 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 and yes. However, I'm only an expert on that last one. My name is Jared Williams, and I'm an employment specialist. I've spent my life learning employment skills and then teaching those skills to others. I currently serve as the president of the Oklahoma Association of Career and Employment Professionals. I was also, to the best of my knowledge, the first person in the state of Oklahoma to be certified as a re-entry employment specialist. I do have one fairly big disadvantage though. I've never been incarcerated, nor do I have an immediate family member that's been incarcerated. I'm one of the lucky few. However, that's a real problem when it comes to me helping people that are justice involved become successes. If I'm going to help someone become successful and overcome all the barriers that they have to face, I have to know what those barriers are, and I have to know how to overcome them. So, to do that, I started gathering up success stories. I started talking to people that had successfully transitioned back into society and really made a name for themselves. And whenever I talked to them, I would listen, really listen to their stories, what kind of life they had beforehand, what led them on this path, what did they do after being incarcerated, and how they broke through all the barriers that so many other people get stuck at. I learned a lot of things throughout this process. I learned that justice-involved people are resilient, loyal, hardworking, creative. However, I also learned that almost no one overcomes all of these barriers on their own. The only way to become a success story is if you have a group of organizations that are willing to collaborate and help lift you up and help you overcome all of these barriers instead of just everyone trying to do their own thing. No single organization can overcome all of the obstacles that our returning citizens face. And to let you see what that looks like, I'm going to share with you a success story of one of my personally favorite people I've met, Jessica Clark. Jessica spent most of her childhood growing up in a small town outside of central Oklahoma. She was a great kid, had straight A's, she was an honor student, she took advanced classes, she played softball and basketball, ran track, and she dreamed of one day becoming a teacher. All of that changed though whenever she turned 13. Her family was driving in her father's truck down a highway in the rain, and a drunk driver turned out in front of them. The resulting crash didn't leave any fatalities, but it did leave almost everyone with multiple broken bones. The person that seemed to get the worst of it was Jessica's father, who had multiple injuries on his back. Soon after the accident, Jessica's father had back surgery and was prescribed pain pills. Soon after that, he became addicted to pain pills and started drinking whenever those pain pills would run out. Jessica watched as the role model that she aspired to be one day transform into an abuser of every kind. Jessica barely graduated high school. Her A's had dipped down into D's. She started staying out late, partying, hanging out with friends, doing everything that she could to just try to forget about the abuse and the pain. But then she fell in love. She fell in love with a man, and they moved off to go to community college after graduating high school. She starts to do better. She starts to do better in school, started to get better grades, and life was looking good. Till around her 21st birthday, when she gave birth to her firstborn child and also learned that her husband had been cheating on her. The day after she gave birth was the first day that Jessica got high. Her drug of choice, pain pills. The cheating continued, and before long, both of them were on drugs. And her husband had started to become physically abusive. After 3 years of that, Jessica finally left and got her own place. But the addiction didn't stop. Jessica found herself spending every dime that she had on pain pills. She got so addicted that at one point in time, even just having a short withdrawal would cause her to go into seizures. But she did ultimately go to rehab. She did ultimately get clean. And things started to look good. But that ended up just being the first of many cycles that Jessica would end up going through. Over the next decade, Jessica would get clean again and again and relapse again and again, always continuing the cycle. She would get clean and get better, only then to have a relationship break apart, have her possessions burned in a fire, or have a patient give her 720 hydrocodones to dispose of. And then she would find herself addicted again. There was always something to restart the cycle. She would put forth the work to get clean and get sober and to finally break the cycle, only to find herself in it again. In the middle of these cycles is whenever she gave birth to her second child, only then to ultimately end up losing custody of both her first and second child. It was also during these cycles that she ended up being convicted of robbery and possession. And the story behind that is that a boyfriend that she had at the time found out about the fact that her father owed her insurance money from the fire that destroyed all of her possessions. And the boyfriend, being the noble gentleman that he was, broke into her father's house and stole all of the contents out of his safe, giving Jessica the portion that she was owed and then keeping the rest for himself and disappearing. Whenever the police came searching at Jessica's house, they discovered not only, of course, drug paraphernalia, but also some of the contents from the safe. So what finally stopped the cycle? Well, like many times before, Jessica got sick and tired of being sick and tired. It all culminated in an event where, while she was pregnant with her third child, she got kicked out of her boyfriend's house and walked miles in the rain to her grandmother's house. Her grandmother, who was given her multiple opportunities before, refused to let her in. Jessica spent the night pregnant, sleeping on a small covered cement porch, using her backpack as a pillow. It was in that moment that Jessica decided that she would not fail this child like she did her other two. That next morning, Jessica called her parole officer and asked to be placed in rehab in the farthest rehab from her hometown that he could find. He obliged. And Jessica went to rehab, and she graduated from rehab just one day before giving birth to her third child. The day after giving birth, her boyfriend showed back up with some drugs, and Jessica relapsed again. The only thing that stopped this one from being another cycle was the fact that the day after that, Child Services came by. And knowing Jessica's history, they drug tested her, to which, of course, Jessica failed. But the Child Services didn't take away her child. Instead, she gave Jessica the opportunity. She told Jessica that she could keep her newborn baby as long as she went back to rehab. Jessica accepted this deal, and she returned to rehab. And 9 months later, she graduated again. And then the Child Services worker offered her another deal. She could either go back home, and Child Services would monitor her for the next 2 years doing random visits and drug tests, or she could go live at the Oklahoma Baptist Homes for Children, and Child Services would only monitor for the next 6 months. Jessica again accepted the deal, and this turned out to be the most important, great decision of her life. At Oklahoma Baptist Homes for Children, or OBHC, Jessica learned how to be an adult again. She got all of her IDs. She took parenting classes. She got into counseling. She got involved in a church. and she finally started making long-term plans. OBHC, in their continued support of Jessica, referred her over to the higher program at Moore Norman. There, she started to learn employment skills and start to do some career exploration. And Jessica decided that what she wanted more than anything was to work in the legal office industry. Now, the higher program doesn't teach legal office skills, but they got her quickly and swiftly into Moore Norman's legal office program, where they continued to support her by setting up internships, and she got to learn legal office skills inside of that program. But they told Jessica that if she was going to really be considered for employment in legal office, that she would have to exceed all expectations in order to overcome her criminal background. Jessica did far more than any of us could have ever hoped for. She interned at multiple legal offices and did an exceptional job. But she also competed in national competitions for legal office. And I say competed, but what I really mean is that Jessica dominated. This picture is right after Jessica just won first place in 2 national competitions for legal office. Best in the nation. Jessica then ultimately continued on to college and earned her bachelor's degree in criminal justice and ethics. And by the way, stayed on the dean's honor roll the entire time she was in school. She now works at a law firm, has full custody of her 3rd child, and regularly gets to visit and see her first 2. She's been sober for 5 years and has a full community of people willing and ready to support her if ever she needs help. Jessica is an amazing person and the very definition of a success story. But I hope sharing her story with you caused you to realize how important the background collaboration of different organizations is for success and breaking the cycle. All of these organizations worked together to help lift Jessica up out of the cycle that had been dominating her life. As employment specialists, social workers, counselors, advisors, and whatever else, we get so caught up in trying to be everything for everybody that we forget that we don't have to do it alone. Whenever she called the parole officer to look for a rehab place, the parole officer didn't say, "Oh, well, I offer rehab services every other Thursday night. You just swing on by." Nor did the parole officer say, "Oh, you're on drugs? Okay, well, I should just go ahead and lock you back up in prison again." No, the parole officer referred her over to a rehab service that is far better than the parole officer is at providing those services. The parole officer gave her a referral to a place that he knew would be able to help her better than he could, and then took a supportive role. Whenever the child services worker came by, she didn't just take the kid and put him in the system. She instead offered Jessica an opportunity to go back to rehab and then to go to Oklahoma Baptist Homes for Children, while taking a step back and again acting as a supportive role. At OBHC, Jessica got all of the resources that she could to act as a great foundation, a launching point for her future goals. And after that foundation was set, OBHC then referred her over to the people at Higher that could help out with those long-term goals. In Higher, they helped Jessica out with all those employment skills, but then also referred her over to Moore Norman Technology Center to get those hard skills in legal office that she was looking for. and help set up internships for the future. This kind of collaboration only works when we all stop trying to reinvent the wheel and start just focusing on being a really good spoke in that wheel. You don't have to be everything for everyone. You just have to know someone in each of the other spokes. If I can perfect a seamless method to where I can provide housing for people, then I don't need to also be worrying about transportation. You can worry about transportation. And if I'm taking care of housing and you're taking care of transportation, then you can be worried about getting them food. And then you can be worried about helping them get a job. And you can be worried about helping them get their IDs. None of us have to do it all. We're able to help so many more people whenever we approach it this way, because we're no longer trying to lift an entire mountain by ourselves, but we're doing it with a team. And that is precisely what we've been doing in Oklahoma. A year and a half ago, just before the quarantine started, I started a new group called RES, or Reentry Employment Specialist. I was tired of being the only person certified in Oklahoma. And so I went back to get further certification as a trainer so that way I could begin certifying others. It was actually a really fun experience of convincing my employer to send me and 3 of my colleagues down to Austin, Texas for a solid week to become certified. And it was worth it. Not because we got another product to sell, because we actually don't charge for our certification, but because we're actually making a difference. The workshop to get certified is 3 full days that cover a variety of topics. But it's actually not the curriculum that's the main thing that you get out of it. It's the collaboration and connections that you wouldn't have had otherwise. We make this happen by following 2 simple rules. Rule number 1 is that we limit our class sizes. We only allow 20 to 30 people attend for each class. Rule number 2 is that we only allow 1 to 2 people from each organization to attend at a time. This makes it where we have to do more workshops more frequently, which means more work for us. But it's okay, and it's worth it, because this allows for everyone to get to know each other and for connections to be made that wouldn't have otherwise been. If we taught this workshop to 30 Department of Correction officers, nothing would be gained. They would learn a few new techniques, but no long-standing impact would be made. Now, whenever you attend our workshops, it is guaranteed that there are going to be 15 to 30 other organizations represented. And so you will get to know people and make connections with organizations that you wouldn't have otherwise ever been able to make a connection with. Despite these limitations and quarantine, we've been able to certify 82 professionals across Oklahoma and across 37 different organizations. These organizations consist of nonprofits, schools, companies, government agencies, and faith-based organizations. And the connections don't just stop whenever the workshop ends. Everyone that's attended and gotten certified are invited to network for 1 hour once a month, where we get to touch base, talk about employers, ideas, projects that we're working on, or at the very least, just remind each other that we're not in this alone. What's come out of just that 1 hour a month is mind-blowing. We're beginning a monthly re-entry job fair that will take place in multiple locations across Oklahoma's metro areas. This job fair is going to become the place to go to after being released from prison. And it's being put together by a collaboration between the Department of Corrections, the Diversion Hub, Team, Work Ready Oklahoma, Moore Norman Technology Center, Pioneer Library System, and Metro Library System. All of these groups are coming together to provide this resource so that way we can make a lasting impact. We also have several different organizations, part of our group, that are in the process of being cleared to go into prisons in order to start preparing the inmates for reentry before they ever take a single step outside of those walls. We've set up multiple pipelines between organizations and employers, like the pipeline that currently exists between Scissortail Waste Management Solutions and Remerge, where they hired one of Remerge's clients, who's a new mother, and accommodated her by letting her bring her newborn baby to work with her. Grants are also being written that will allow us to teach job skills, not just to those that are in prison, but to also those that are in jail for misdemeanors. That way we can start working to break the cycle before it ever escalates to a felony. All of these projects and more stem from just a single idea: collaboration. And we're not the only group that has realized how beneficial this can be. Just last month, the Second Chance Business Coalition was established. This is a coalition made up of these 5 amazing organizations that have started to work together to go and talk to employers about how beneficial it is to be a second chance employer. Over 30 national companies have already signed on as members. And again, they started less than a month ago. The Oklahoma Employment and Training Alliance, which started only during quarantine, is made up of 15 different companies, nonprofits, and foundations for the sole purpose of lowering barriers to employment for everyone in the state. The main thing that they've been working on so far is investing in an online software system that will allow communication and collaboration across organizations. What that means is that whenever you go fill out an intake form at Goodwill, you won't need to fill out the same form at Work Ready Oklahoma. That information can be streamlined between the two of them. So now less time has to be spent on red tape and more time can be spent on helping people. The only way that we improve lives and make a difference in society is through collaboration. Don't try to be the whole wheel. Just focus on being a really good spoke and let your partners do the rest. Thank you.